Happy Tuesday. We're back in the shop. Let's get a little walk around update. What's going on here? My front right headlight is in the original one I had purchased. As I mentioned in previous clips, had bad adjusters or would not adjust up. So I got a replacement in there, had it filmed, and it is leveled. So we're back in business there. That's about all we got on my car. On my M5, over to the 540, we got the rest of the parts today that we were awaiting from Germany for the PDC retrofit, and that was holding up the bumper installation and painting and pork chops and other associated fog lights, other associated jobs. So the piece I was waiting for was this corner impact strip trim piece with the PDC holes. That's here. The PDC holes on the M5 trims, front and rear, are molded in. The bracket that holds the sensor in the trim is molded into the trim. It's all one piece. It's that way on the rear, but on the standard 5 Series, the fronts have these little adapters that snap into the trim, and that's where the PDC sensor snaps in. And those had to come, 3 of the 4 had to come from Germany, so those are all here. Meaning the only part I'm awaiting right now on this car is the transmission from having the rear covers swapped out and resealed, and that'll be done tomorrow. So I've rented a car, which I will pick up tomorrow at noon here in Escondido, drive up to South LA County, pick up the transmission, come back. With any luck, we'll have time to get that in Thursday or Friday this week, and we'll be back in service, at least drivable. Then, since I've got the rest of these parts, I reached out to my paint shop here in town that I'm going to try. I'm not going to go and take it to the place that would do a 99.9% job. 92.5% and better is good enough on this car. So I think they're going to do a fine job. The paint's not great anyway, so I'm not worried about it. I just want a close match. So I'm on their schedule as early as they can get me in, which is October 10th, and they want the car for 2 days to paint match and get all that done, and then they want the parts for like 4 or 5 days, and then they want me to put them on. Well, obviously they wanted to put them on, but I want to put them on myself since this is a whole retrofit. It's not just a bumper swap. So when I get everything done and all the panels on the car, then I'll take it back. They'll have it one more day just to polish and buff the panels. So that's where we are here. On the 540, which I mistakenly called a 530 yesterday. They worked on that earlier today. I would have to look at the work order. There's so much going on this car. I see the brake lines, we're using the UUC ones, are here. So they're gonna go in, and then obviously a brake fluid flush, which we just did a few thousand miles ago for him. This is the car that had the bad brake booster. It was full of water and you had to pull the pedal back out after you applied the brakes manually. He was driving it like that. So now it's got a new booster, reservoir, and the E65 7 Series master cylinder, which he's happy with, but time to do the brake lines. And I think we did a fan and fan clutch. No, we did valve cover gaskets on this yesterday. Mike did. So we should be a day or 2 out from having this car done and delivered. It's a car that lives outside, that has 200,000 miles on it, and is not ashamed to show it. I don't know if this has been used as a table or a shipping center, but this has been a really trusty car for him, 200,000 miles, and we want to keep it going. The 750 I'll be back in tomorrow. Tonight I've got to drive the Le Mans Blue 01 E39 M5. We did the clutch and the whole driveline thing in that, and brakes. So I'll take it home once and back up here once, and if everything's good, it's going to be ready for pickup this Saturday. That'll be out of here. Most of today was spent over here, at least with half our workforce with Michael. He did a ton of work on the carbon black M5. This is the timing chain and guide car. So timing covers are back on completely. Can we see in there? It's awaiting valve cover gaskets, intake plenum, engine air intake tubes and boxes and filters and whatnot. Thermostat's got to go in. By tomorrow afternoon, we could be turning the key on this car, which we're all nervous about. But with the flywheel alignment pin in, which it is right now, the 4 notches on all 4 camshafts are all lined up perfectly. The engine rotates fine. We took the plugs out so we could run with no compression and do several rotations of the engine manually by hand. Everything sounds good. There's no interference. Chain's nice and tight. So we're feeling good about it. And we're always nervous to turn the key after something this deep, especially being that this is our first timing chain and guide job. But we have a lot of confidence in it. And can't wait to hear this thing run again. Then the other guy, Sergio, spent a bunch of time today over here on the 2002 M5 in carbon black with 50,000 miles. Whole front suspension's out. We were initially just contracted to change out the springs. It had Dynon or some sort of lowering springs on it, which he didn't want. It also had wheel spacers, which he didn't want. I've already sold, per his request, the rear 10mm spacers, so those are gone. It's got new rear control arms, wishbones, and guide links. We'll get those cleaned cleaned up. There's just some dirty fingerprints on them now. So those are in and ready to go, ready for alignment. It's got Beast Power sway bar brackets now. The left one had sheared off. I think I said this thing had Dynon exhaust. That's incorrect. It is Super Sprint exhaust. It sounds very similar to the Dynon system, real boomy down low. So both of those and 4 arms, and then we had to replace this bracket on the right side because of course it was broken. Yesterday I did the front door gaskets on the chassis, both of those, and the left door sill, and filled out the trunk tools, power steering reservoir bushings, just little stuff when I didn't have the car in a lift. Now with the car in the lift, whole front suspension's out. We're doing straight arms, curved arms, I think outer tie rods. Looks like he's gotten the idler arm here loose at the subframe. So well underway. We've got all the new arms here, and the brakes, wheel carriers, those are all going to stay. Just fresh control arms in there. And then back to the springs. So we got a set of low mileage factory OEM springs, and well, you can imagine what happens when you take a 20-year-old spring off the strut and then you push the piston in on the strut and it don't come back out very well. It has now after a few hours, but we'll give this guy a push in, which is way too easy, and next to nothing. So blown as a function of time, seemingly more than miles. I expect the same thing over here. This doesn't really look like a Dynon spring. It's kind of the wrong blue, but maybe it is. Maybe they changed the paint. Maybe they're old. I don't know. Anyways, he's approved front struts. We've ordered the parts. They'll be here Thursday. Today's Tuesday. So normal shit. We're going to do the top mounts, which I already had in stock. We're going to do bump stops, the boots, lower spring pad, upper spring pad. It'll all be new. Then we'll be able to reassemble the front suspension, torque the suspension, and get it off to alignment. Then we've got brake lines, because we're doing that on pretty much every one of these cars now. They all crack right down there at the interface with the fitting for the rear calipers. It's kind of a tight design. But we hope to have this done. It would probably have to be about mid next week now, seeing that we have a parts delay on the front suspension. Yeah, we've got a fuel filter as well. That'll go in tomorrow. And then the low tone horn is not working, which we're assuming is a bad horn. It could be a wiring issue. We'll have to see when we pull the fender liner down here, the pork chop. So the horn sounds ridiculous. He came in here, he's like, is this what the horn's supposed to sound like? He goes, meep, meeps. No, that is not what the horn's supposed to sound like. Only half of yours is working. And then lastly, this E60 is back. We took the ABS module out. He had 2 codes regarding the pump and the pump connector being faulty, 5DF0 and 5DF1. We took it all apart, cleaned everything up, put it back together, bled the brakes, and drove it on 3 separate occasions, and it was completely fine. No more codes. This is the car that had the EDC problem. We put that fuse 17 in. That's fixed the EDC problem, but 3 test drives, it was fine. Delivered it back to the customer. He gets 2 miles away. He's getting on the highway, and all the lights come back. It's like, why the hell couldn't it do that for me? I drove it hard. I drove it easily. I took it on the highway. I took it around corners. I did everything I thought I could do in 20 miles to try to get the codes to reappear, and they didn't. And the customer drives the car, and they're back in minutes. So it's back. The module's out. It's on its way to Module Master. Apparently those 2 codes, they've listed them on their website as common failures of the module, and it's like 38,000 miles or something. These cars go through as much service problems sitting around as the ones that are out driving, you know, if they're reasonably taken care of. You see different types of wear. You'll see, obviously, tires and brakes wear out on cars that are driven more, but you still see plastic fatigue and like those strut failure and rubber fatigue on cars that just sit around a lot. They're made to be used. So it's a 5-day rebuild. It's a couple days there and a couple day back. So it's going to be about 10 days now. It's going to have to sit in here while we wait for that module and pump assembly will come back, go in the car. We'll bleed it out. I'll road test the car further than before. Assuming the faults don't return, it'll be on its way to its owner. That's all I got now. It's about 8 o'clock. I'm going to head out of here. I've got leftovers from last night for dinner, but I'm in desperate need of a shower first. The Le Mans Blue car I've been calling an 01 is not an 01. It is an 02. It's got a CF VIN for 1 and 2. I noticed we've got automatic headlights. So 189,198 miles. Clutch and driveline, brakes and stuff in this car, as I mentioned. And it's got split foldy seats, which are way louder than mine. And there's this, it's not the warble, the warbler sound that the split folds get when they're really loose. It's got something else coming from the back. And I don't think it's driveline related. I'll put the windows down when I get in a less congested area and make sure it doesn't get louder. We'll get a look under it before we send it out, but it just sounds to me like the rear parcel shelf, and we do not have sunshades in this car. which is a double-edged sword, because when you've got the sunshade, you have an extra 3 10mm nuts that hold the rear parcel shelf to the chassis. But you have all those extra moving parts and stuff shoved in there where it may or may not have been designed originally to hold that. Probably. I think they made the E39 to have a sunshade, but it's pretty tight. I don't know if you can hear that or not. It's like small to medium bumps is where you hear it. Hey, what's up? We're gonna do a night take here tonight. I had my leftovers from last night. My penne alla vodka with bacon and ribeye. Isn't that just American? It was grand. Drove the blue car home, as I talked about. Things are good. I don't foresee any issues here, though I got behind some truck that had some chrome on the back, and I'm appalled by what I saw. I don't know if appalled is the right word. It's not my taste. This one's got some blue halo rings that are like purpley blue. It's a real low frequency blue, or high frequency blue, I guess that would be, which is in fact illegal in the state of California. You cannot show red or blue lights on the front of the vehicle, but this car does. So not to my taste, but interesting modification and observation. Got through some work tonight. Customer approved a whole bunch of work on one of the cars. I think I mentioned that on the way back, so that's going to keep us busy for the foreseeable future. Tomorrow's going up to LA to pick up the transmission. I'll talk to you then on hump day. Good night.